Good afternoon, everybody. Here we are at the Chicago showroom, and it's my great honor today to have a very special guest, a long way from here. He's actually sat now in Melbourne, Australia. It's 8 o'clock in the morning there. So a big warm welcome from everybody here in the US to Ben Lornie, who's the Senior Associate and Architectural Lead for the Education Sector, PTID Architects in Melbourne.
Thanks for the intro. Wonderful to be here.
Great to see you, Ben. Anyway, it's always great to see a smiling face in these current times. Obviously, COVID's affecting everybody, and obviously you and I have had a few chats prior to the interview about that, so we can perhaps talk a little bit about COVID and how it's affecting you towards the end of the interview. But I guess today we're really interested, or our viewers will be really interested in a particular project, the Kwong Lee Dow Centre, which is part of the University of Melbourne. Mm-hmm. And I think for me, why I'm so fascinated about it, it began really about repurposing real estate. So I think the first question that I want to fire at you, I guess, was the site was a former car park. And we're all wondering, even to this day, how did it become repurposed into a learning environment?
It's an interesting story, and I guess for us it goes back to a project that we'd done for the university many years before. And I remember when we were looking at that project, that was on level 5, and you'd go up in the lift, and one day by chance somebody in the lift happened to be getting out on level 1. The doors opened, and you kind of look out, and it's a car park. And it was a bit of a shock because commonly you'd find the car parks in the basement under the building, and the slab to slab height was sort of 4.5 meters, which you'll have to help me with a conversion into imperial, but you know, a really lovely space, not what you'd expect to find in a car park, which is commonly quite compressed.
Yeah.
And so from that kind of day on, we prompted the university to say, well, this is really wasted as a car park. This could be a wonderful people space. And we planted that seed with them. And I think we kind of thought, oh, well, I guess there's no appetite for that. And then 4 years later, they came back and said, oh, there's something in that. And as a university, they had a very proactive green strategy about reducing car parks and encouraging people to, ride bikes and use public transport. So across campus, they were trying to get rid of car parks and repurpose them. Right. And so they came to the market with an RFP to repurpose this space, which was wonderful for us, having kind of felt like we'd been part of that inception for them many years earlier.
So that's remarkable, isn't it? I mean, that's a fantastic story to start with, how really it was your idea that they've embraced and kept that in their locker, I guess, for that period of time. That's fantastic. I love that. So how did you go about developing the brief once you were fully on board, the client's fully on board? It all sounds really exciting, but how did that, the brief develop?
It was really fascinating. So what was happening at Melbourne University at the time is they were building a brand new rail station, pretty much right in the middle of their campus. And they knew that this was going to be very disruptive to their students. And so they were kind of looking at almost a duplication process north of this new development and south of this development, so that they wanted the student experience to almost exist either side of the divide, because crossing it was going to be very difficult. And what they established was that pretty much all of their examination venues were on the other side of this line. And so the project kind of started as okay, how can we get some exam venues south of the line? Car park seemed like a good spot. And one of the things that was really attractive to the uni was that they could literally drive up exam furniture, deliver it to the space, so that when they were using it for exams, they'd drive in new tables and chairs, move the old ones out, and then drive back in the right furniture at the time. And this was something right from the start that we kind of saw as an opportunity, that if we could make the furniture be flexible enough that it didn't need to do both, then we could have the right furniture in the space the whole time, And that meant we could turn that ramp into a people space.
Oh, that's fantastic. So much better use of the real estate is what you're saying. And
Absolutely.
yeah, that's a win-win situation for everybody then.
Yeah.
So the brief called for two distinct user groups. How did you design for more than one use?
Yeah, it was a real challenge. And as you can imagine, normally when you start a project like this, you've got lots of stakeholders that you can engage with. You know, there's faculty, there's teachers, and there's kind of students that you get some involvement with. Because this was mostly exam spaces and then specialist professional development spaces, there was actually a lack of a cohort to go and talk to. And so we came up with this idea of creating personas, you know, kind of imaginary types that would use the building. And we workshopped those with the guys who were on board. And it really gave us actually a wonderful insight into what each user group was going to want out of the space. And so I think we came up with about, 7 or 8 personas, covering professionals, academics, people coming to study there, but also people coming to do exams there, which, as you can imagine, is actually a really heightened, emotional, stressful kind of experience for most people. Certainly, whether it's true or not, in their minds, most people build these exams up to be a make or break moment in their lives. And so once we kind of established all of these personas, it gave us a real insight into how we could use the space to make the space work better for each one of those types that we're going to use it.
That's fantastic. Well, we're absolutely delighted that we were involved in some of that with you, of course. And I remember having various conversations with you, one over dinner, about music rooms and mobile music storage units where bands could suddenly pop up. I love the idea of a pop-up band, of course, with our music background. Could you just tell us a little bit about that piece of furniture? Because for me, that's one that really excites me.
It's a great piece of furniture, and they got called the jam hubs. And so the idea really came from creating a space where the acoustics didn't get in the road of the pedagogy. So if you can imagine, you've got a class of sort of 35 people, you come together, you talk about your lesson plan, this is what we want to achieve. Okay, we want you to form into groups of, 5 or 6, and then go away and write a piece of music. That's your task today. Great task. I'd be really excited about that if that was my task for the day. But then you go off, and you can imagine having a room filled with 5 or 6 drummers all working out what the song's going to sound like. It's not going to work at all. Acoustically, it's a disaster. And so it really started from, how do we solve that problem? How can we have 5 or 6 groups playing music in the same open plan space, but maintain the acoustic integrity of what each one's doing? And that's where that idea started, that, well, if we could make them all electronic, then everybody could be playing with their headphones on, and the teacher would just go around and plug in, give their feedback, listen, provide some advice. And then the next step to that idea was, well, now that we've made them all electronic, what if we could put them in a cupboard? And then we could wheel them out and we could wheel them away. And it became this great sort of light bulb moment where everybody went, oh, there's something in that. And that's really where the whole idea started.
Yeah, it's a terrific idea. And it's probably the most exciting business dinner I've ever had, when you were telling me all about that particular element of the project, obviously, with being a music guy. So we love that. We love that. And obviously we want to take that forward, as you know, in terms of the whole mobility, the whole multifunctional aspect is really interesting. And I felt just recently with the COVID, there's some interesting sort of thoughts behind having everything in a controlled environment as well, that you can wheel all your instruments out in this unit. And even dividing space. So it's become very exciting for me to talk about that particular part of the project.
Well, that's interesting, just from that simple idea that, as the design evolved, you're right, it became very much about space. And so, for anybody who's seen them, and I'm sure you can post-edit in some pictures or something, but the doors deliberately open up twice as large as they really need to, so that it really does help define the space that you can occupy as part of your band. And then on the back of them, there's a whiteboard so that the other users can use that as part of theirs. Yeah. But then it packs up, and it kind of has a good security overlay for the university, but for other users, it's wonderful. And one of the things we're really interested in developing is how that can be used in primary schools.
Yeah.
Where music is often the first thing to go, as we all know, but it's such a critical thing. And so it could just be, it's a multi-purpose space. Here's the music cupboard, you wheel it out and off you go, you do a music lesson, you pack it up and you push it back in the corner, and then the room could be used for dance next.
Yeah, it's just fantastic. It's an absolutely amazing example how flexible furniture can just change a space completely to something completely dynamic. And a space for all is a phrase that I like to talk about.
Yeah.
Space that everybody can enjoy. And, I think the acoustic element for me was fascinating in that you built out these acoustic doors that are controlling reverberation, which, as we know, when it comes to sound, sound either works for you or against you. It's either a joy or it's a huge irritation. And in this case, we're enabling people to go and make music and softening, that process, regardless of kind of the sounds that they're making. So it's a way that people can be fearless about music as well. So all that for me is fantastic. Yeah. So I mean,
once the headphones are on, you can just play that music as loud as you want it, and nobody else even knows how loud you've got it.
That's it. Well, I guess we're talking today, for the viewers there, just a recap, we're talking to Ben Lornie, who's the Senior Associate and Education Lead for PTID Architecture in Melbourne, Australia. And what fascinates us, we're talking about a space that's a multifunctional space. So how do you balance multifunctional spaces but still create an environment that's fit for all needs, do you feel?
I think it's a real challenge, and I think sadly, I think some spaces are actually ruined by having them be so multifunctional. And our strategy has always been to really understand the user's needs, and it's a fine balance between bespoke design, creating something that's exactly suited to that, creating something that can do a lot of different functions, but I think also having that sense of designing for a future that's not yet known, and whenever you design something that's excessively bespoke, it has that tendency to become redundant and obsolete in a short amount of time. Things change rapidly, especially in school environments where they're not going to be updated every 2 or 3 years. You have to design something that has longevity. And I think that's Absolutely. Where really well-designed, multifunctional furniture, operable walls, spaces that can connect, but then can also feel like they're cozy, are really, really important. And for us, understanding what every particular user needs out of the space is the only way to achieve that.
Right. So lots of research and background before you get into the project, I guess.
Yeah. But I think if we look at one of your products, for example, the kite table, which, is such a fantastic product, because at the Kwong Lee Dow Centre, we've used those kite tables to be an individual exam table, to be, I'm going to sit in a group of 6 and collaborate. I'm going to sit in a group of 8 and collaborate. But you also see, and this is what I love about flexible furniture, once you give, and students are really good about understanding that they have the license to make the space how they need it. So it's such an easy thing that every time you walk past the rooms, it's reconfigured in a new way. And I think more and more, as people become aware of their opportunities in space, and students are certainly great explorers of this, they customize it as they go. And so the lesson might start out with, it's a fairly didactic, we're going to talk about what we're going to do today. but then it breaks down into a collaboration, and the furniture can support all of that, which has been one of the great successes of the Quamley DAO. You know, how it can change from professional development, exam venue, kind of fairly traditional classes, and the skyfold walls, which are the other kind of key flexible component in there, means it's just instant. You know, it's not a day's setup. It's 5 minutes later, you're doing something completely different.
Absolutely. And I guess in terms of, because it's a very creative environment there also, isn't it, at that location? And I guess that caters for the creative mindset as well, where they can make a change in the moment.
Yeah.
And there's also the element, I guess, of understanding design, which is pretty cool, by actually having things around you that you can use as almost like building blocks and change things around and move them around to suit your needs. So, well,
yeah, and I think one of the great things that Melbourne Uni are doing, that there's kind of a partnership between the architecture group and the education group, and they're really trying to encourage teachers, excuse me, to understand space better. And it's this kind of crossover between architecture and education that it's kind of sad, but nobody's really spent a lot of time thinking about it before, that a lot of educators, they don't actually understand space very well. And certainly a lot of architects don't understand education very well. And we have to come together to get the most out of one another. And it's certainly one of the things that Melbourne Uni are doing really well, is getting their educators to understand space better, which means they can just ad hoc understand that, okay, I can move some furniture around and get the environment I need.
Yeah, I think the fact that Melbourne Uni, they ranked number 1 on student satisfaction, I was reading the other day. So I guess that's testimony to this whole process, that both the university and the students, really love these sites and this ability to make these instant changes to accommodate all, and everybody benefits down to the design of the environment. So the design has won well, it's got lots and lots of admirers, let's put it that way, me of course, but but lots of international exposure and award recognition, which we're all thrilled about. And thanks so much, Ben, for all you do, for including us in your posts about the awards that you've been won. That's very kind of you. So you must be thrilled with the awards, and there's lots of them. My sheet isn't long enough to read all the stuff all the awards that these sites have won. But I guess the question for me, is there a particular award that is most relevant or you're most proud of?
Yeah, absolutely. Awards, as you know, it's wonderful peer recognition, and everybody loves to win awards, but they can often be, sometimes they're judged on the hero image, and the hero image, it just doesn't really represent the actual experience that the users are going to have. And for us, we're really about leveraging design for transformative, long-lasting change. And so we recently were awarded a Design Impact Award, which it's a slightly different award. So in order to win that award, your project must be a certain age, and you have to go back and do some post-occupancy analysis to show that it's actually had an impact, that the design has delivered for the people using the building. And then there's a really rigorous site inspection and client interview process that the jurors go through, which I think is quite unique as an award. Yeah. To have that kind of rigor approach. And so, yeah, definitely winning that award sits at kind of the top for us in that education space, because if what you're doing doesn't lead to long-term impact and doesn't have a genuine kind of advantage long-term, then all you've done is make something beautiful, which we love making beautiful things, don't get us wrong. But we want them to be beautiful.
And you do, by the way. And you do. That I've got to say, this is for anybody that hasn't seen the site, and we're going to share some images with our viewers and our clients. It is a stunning site as well as being multifunctional, and that's quite an achievement. I see in my career very few sites that get that balance of the durability, the multifunctional aspect, and a stunning aesthetic. I think it's a gorgeous, beautiful place to go and learn and work. So we're super proud to have been involved. And again, thank you, Ben, and to your team for bringing us on board from a furniture point of view. I guess we'll sort of wrap up today with just a little bit about COVID.
Yeah.
One of the things I was, pleased about is because we had a chat a few weeks back, and you said how well that site can cope with COVID. Could you sort of elaborate a little bit more about your thoughts about COVID and how spaces are going to look in the future?
Yeah, it's one of the real challenges that the world is facing at the moment. But one of the things we feel strongly about as designers of space is that space is really important for people, and coming together in space is important for education, for workplaces, for public spaces. And there's a lot that we can achieve online. I'm currently working from home. I can still do a lot of the things that I would do, and there's students across the world who are learning from home. But there's also a range of experiences that we need to be together to properly do. And I think collaboration is kind of a key example. But I think the way space influences people and the way people connect to space is a key part of the way our brains are wired. And so I think people are going to very quickly long to come back to these spaces. And so we need to find ways to enable that safely. And we've done quite a bit of work already, kind of researching how that might happen, how we can get people to work in spaces, but still be, appropriately physically distanced. And I certainly think, certainly the pinch points we're struggling with are normally the getting in and out part. Once you're in the spaces themselves are actually, certainly a space like Kwong Li Dao, it's a very multifunctional space. Creating that flexibility in the space is actually, it's already there. That space works. It's getting kind of from the ground plane into the building and into the space that we're having challenges with at the moment. And certainly the Kwong Li Dao, the way that you can come off the street where that car park ramp used to be, means it's not a problem there. But across the suite of university campuses and commercial environments, that's certainly the challenge we're grappling with, is how do we get people in? Once they're in, most of the spaces can support quite easily.
Yeah.
How do we get people into those spaces is our challenge.
That's right. Yeah, and public transport and all the regulations from the minute you leave, whether it's home or your dormitory, wherever you reside, I guess. Well, that's fantastic. I mean, our own thoughts on it, just to share with our audience, is that we should trust people, and there's more. As we move along with COVID, we're learning more about COVID, and you and I had a conversation about air quality and simple things we can do to keep air quality, okay. Like getting windows open is a very simple, analogy. It's a simple thing anybody can do and improve air quality, but also look at your air conditioning systems and these kind of things. So if we get all those things, almost like the basics sorted out, I think we can trust people. I think we can trust people to move our kite tables around and get that distance that they require. And throughout my career, I've always objected to conversations where people say, we can't trust the kids, or they're going to wreck the furniture, or it's absolute nonsense. And I think just to share with our viewers, this particular project that we're talking about in Melbourne, at the University of Melbourne, it's written test to me 3 years in. There's an award that says that everything's great and it's working great and the furniture isn't damaged. The people, the students, the faculty have embraced multifunctional furniture. And the actual statistics in terms of whether it be ranking or results are all in our favor, aren't they?
Absolutely.
So, yeah. So once again, we've been delighted to work with you, Ben. We hope we get the opportunity again soon. I was supposed to be on a plane sometime this year to come and hang out with you, but hopefully, that won't be too far away, maybe early next year. So from all of us, thanks again, and we'll catch up with you soon.
Excellent. Thank you very much. And good luck in Chicago.